Hi everyone, and welcome back to Taking Up Space with Jordan. I'm your host, Jordan, and I'm a certified and trained life coach, and I am super excited to be here today because today is the first ever filming of my channel for YouTube. And so if you are listening to me on Spotify, or iTunes, you can now go and see me on YouTube. I have a lot of plans for the YouTube channel that will have like things that are not going to be shared on the podcast, so you'll have to go and check out the YouTube channel to get more information on that. So I will link that down in the show notes, but I'm super excited for this and super excited for this next adventure when it comes to the podcast and hoping that it grows. And I just very happy for everyone that has supported me so far, and going to hopefully this will lead to, oh, that was bad, this next chapter, will hopefully lead to even bigger things for me and the podcast. The other thing that I wanted to announce before we really get going in today's episode is I will be hosting a Seattle specific book club. So what that means is that currently the plans are every last Thursday of the month. We will be meeting at a local, most likely either bar or coffee shop. I would love to do more coffee shop meetups, but a lot of the times they're just not open late enough. And I would like for this book club to be after work hours so that people aren't having to, struggle, or even myself having to struggle to get to some place like in the middle of the day. There are currently no plans for it to go on Zoom or anything to be like bigger than just the Seattle area. But, we're not going to limit ourselves. So if there ends up being a greater need for that, then I'll start to think about how to grow the book club. And for this book club, the first book of the month will be The House of Broken Bricks by Fiona Williams. I am happy to open the book club with this book because it is a contemporary fiction novel, and that's a lot of what I like. I also like a lot of fantasy and a little bit of smut. Who are we lying? And I like this book because it traces the life and grief of a family that is like kind of trying to move on and find like the possibilities and be invigorated by the new energy of spring. And if you're located in the Pacific Northwest, I think we all are in need of that, me specifically as well. So I'm really excited. So if you're wanting to join me, I will put the calendar link in the show notes as well so that you can find all that information on the book, where to find it, and we will just have fun and get to know a few people, and I'm really excited for it. So yeah. Okay, let's get going on today's episode. So I have my notes here. So if you see me looking down on the YouTube channels, it's because, I'm not one of those people that can just spring it right off the noggin. I do need to write all my little thoughts down first. So just bear with me if you see me looking away. Anyways, so today's episode is all about my corporate journey and how over the past 10 years, this is what I've been through. This is the when I've taken breaks, how I took those breaks, as well as like where I'm at today and how I will be going, or how I'm planning to go back to the corporate world, and how I came to that decision. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. And I really hope that my story will shed some light on some of the positive and negative things about being in the corporate world, especially as a woman. My background, really, I will say, I think the timeline really starts back in 2014. So that was when I was in college. I had a job in high school, things like that. But in college, I worked at a hospitality house, and so it was a really good job for me because I was able to balance work and school really, really well. It gave me, I think it was like part-time work, but the pay was pretty good. At that time, I think I was making $17, $18 an hour. And, as a college student, that was pretty good money, especially I lived in a house with, I want to say like 5 or 6 people. So affording rent was pretty easy. I say easy because it was Seattle, but it was also Seattle in 2014. So the prices that I was paying now are nowhere to what rent and things like that are today, which is insane to me. But yeah, so that started all in about 2014. And then I graduated college in 2017, and I graduated with no idea what I wanted to do. I graduated with a sociology degree. There's not much you can do when you first graduate with a sociology degree. When you do that, you kind of have to either go into a master's program, or you were able to find something while you were in school. And I was not one of those people. So I went and found a couple of different jobs working as like an administrative assistant and working kind of in the medical field. It was kind of like tandem with the medical field and the insurance companies. Hated it, loathed it, absolutely despised it. Didn't like anybody that I worked with really. And there was a couple people that I liked, but for the most part, it was just like not a job that was for me. I didn't like having to call people and tell them that they owed $1,200 because their insurance wouldn't pay for something. I did not like that at all. It left me feeling so icky. It left me feeling disgusting. I hated it. So then I found a new job working for a law firm, and I was there for a couple of years, and that job was nice because it got to, just build up my resume and pad it up a little bit. But the main thing with that one is the job was so limiting. So I started at the front desk, and then I moved into a legal assistant position. And what happens with that is there's nowhere else to go. So either you're going to become a paralegal or an attorney. There's not much else you can do in a law firm. And I didn't want to do either one of those things. I didn't want to become a legal assistant or a legal person. I didn't want to be a paralegal. I didn't want to be a lawyer. While I had fun learning about the law, it just really was not for me. So once again, I'm stuck in this position of not knowing what the hell I want to do with my life. So I was like, you know what? I will go out and try to find a better job, because also I needed more money. Things were happening in my life that I wanted more money. I wanted to be able to go on trips. I wanted to be able to splurge a little here and there. And I just wanted to feel like I was thriving rather than surviving. So we are now in, I want to say 2017, 2019 of my life, or 2017, I think. No, 2019. Sorry, I graduated in college in 2017. So we're in 2019. So I was at the law firm for about 2 years or so. I only made it a couple months at the medical place with insurance. So I didn't make it very long. But so now we're in 2019. Started the job September of 2019. And I feel like that timeline is really important to remember, because 5-6 months later, the world shuts down. And here comes COVID. And this role really, really allowed me to pad my resume. I really enjoyed working with the people that I worked with at this company. There were a couple things I didn't like about it that the people that I worked with had no control over. But overall, I do actually think it was a relatively positive experience. It allowed me to grow my skills. It allowed me to connect with people that I normally wouldn't have connected with. But it was COVID. And so I had to help a company that was pretty much in office Monday through Friday, 8 to 5, go fully online. And then there was all the things that came with COVID. So fast forward through all of that, fast forward through COVID, we're kind of coming out of it, and I'm realizing I'm burnt out. And that burnout feeling started really slowly. It was not something that I woke up and suddenly I was burnt out. The realization came really late. I'd say I probably worked at this company for an extra 4 to 5 months after I realized that I was starting to get burnt out. And it wasn't even me that realized I was burnt out. It was the CEO that I supported at the time. He sat me down one day and was like, hey, I just wanted to check in with you. You don't seem like yourself. You seem like something's kind of wrong. Seems like we're kind of misaligning on a lot of things. What's going on with you? And I couldn't answer him. I had gone onto such autopilot that I was like, what do you mean? Was my work bad? Am I not showing up in the way I'm supposed to be showing up? And he's like, no. Your work is good, but you're not there. You're not present. And that is when things started to just click. So when we had this conversation, I continued working, like I said, for about 4 to 5 months afterwards. And after I had this moment of realization with him, I realized it was time to move on. And didn't know what to move on to. And so I sat down with my partner at the time and said, I think I need to take some time and get my mental health sorted out. Post-pandemic, I had come to a lot of realizations about things that had happened in my life. And I think a lot of us did that. We had a lot of time at home. We had a lot of time to think. My health wasn't where I wanted it to be. I think I gained like 30 to 40 pounds during COVID. I was really struggling. I had a wedding during that time frame as well. And just the stress of planning a wedding during the pandemic, because we kind of came out of it and we went back into it. And during that like 2-week time frame, that's when I got married. And there was just a lot of stress that came with that and a lot of balancing other people's emotions. And I just was tired. And I think when it comes to burnout, I think a lot of the times there is this feeling of like, oh, what is wrong with me? Why can't I just figure it out? And I think we need to realize, at least this was what it was in my case, is that I was depressed. I was really, really depressed. And I was burnt out, not just on my work, but I was burnt out on my life. There was just like so much that had happened in a very short time period. And I hadn't even taken the second to think about it. I hadn't taken the second to wrap my head around what was going on in my life. And it was like I woke up and realized that this wasn't the life that I wanted. I didn't know that at the time. But, you know, we got there. So fast forward, my partner at the time also was having the same burnout feeling. And we just found out that we just didn't work together. We'd been together, I think at that point, like 7-8 years. And we realized that it just wasn't the relationship that either of us wanted. And so we got separated in that time frame. And so a little bit before that, I had decided to go back to work. So I found another tech company and I went and worked there for a little bit and went through the separation, sold my home, got through that chapter of my life. And then I realized after the home had sold, after I had separated from my partner officially and was in my new home, I realized that I still was not happy. There was still something that was disconnected in my life. There was something that was misaligned. I had no purpose. I had no drive. I was bringing down the people all around me. And once again, I was staring at myself in the mirror with that burnt out feeling. I didn't want to get up in the morning. I didn't want to do any of the projects at work. I wasn't happy about any of the things that I was working on. And I was having a discussion with my executive at the time, and he was like, so what's like your career plans? And once again, I couldn't answer the question. I had no career plans because I hadn't thought about it. I hadn't thought about what I had actually wanted because I had been in this survival state, I realized, for the past 2 to 3 years. And now that I was out of it, I was starting over. I was starting from scratch. I was starting from fresh. And I needed to start connecting the dots with what I wanted in my own life. So I believe now we're in 2023. So in 2022, I got separated from my partner. I sold my home, or actually 2023, I sold the home, actually. Yeah, so 2023 separated, sold the home, things like that. All that was tied up with a pretty little bow. And now I'm stuck in this place of like, what the fuck do I do now? So I came to this conclusion with my friend, with my bestie, who's been on the podcast, Allison, that I really needed to reconnect with myself. Her and I had started doing these Sunday walks, especially when it was nice out. We started doing these Sunday walks where we talked about the things that were bothering us. And it was just kind of a time to like have like a no judgment. I need to get this off my chest. You tell me if I'm insane or not, but this is what needs to happen. And I just remember Allison was talking about how, like, what her career goals were and what she wanted. And I just could not relate to her at all. And like, I had made a joke, I think I said something like that, like, who has career goals? Like, self-deprecating joke because I didn't want to face what was going on. But I realized that during one of these walks that I really needed to reconnect with myself and find out what I wanted in my life, because I was going on 29 at the time. I'm going on 30 now. So this was like, 6-7 months ago. Actually, maybe a little bit longer. I think I had this conversation with her in like June. I think I started having the conversation in like June, July. Yeah. So going on like in the summer before my birthday. And I realized that I had no long-term plans. And I had no idea what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to do something creative. I had always wanted to be a writer. I really liked doing that type of stuff. I loved reading. I love generating things. I love creating things. And so one of these days I sat down and just wrote out all the things that I could be. I could be a writer. That's one. I could be a podcaster. Oh, that's interesting. I'd never thought about doing that. I could be a life coach. Oh, I never thought about that. So I went and got my certification to be a life coach. And then I realized, okay, it's going to take time to build up that business. So I started a podcast. I was like, okay, I like this. This is fun. I get to write an episode each week. I get to experience like what it's like to be on the other side of things. Okay, let's see if I can grow this. And so I have been. I've been growing it slowly but surely. I mean, shout out to my like 20 followers out there. Hey. But it made me happy. That type of thing made me happy. And so I decided to take time off again because I wanted to set myself up for longer term success. And what that meant for me was a few different things. I wanted to start focusing on how I could actually be the best version of myself. I had been hearing this, be the best version of yourself, but not how. I hadn't been able to figure that out. And so I was like, you know what? I want to take a couple months and I want to figure this shit out. Like, I want to understand like what is the best version of myself? How do I get there? How do I meet her? Who is she? And so I had been with a therapist at this time. I think we'd been together for 2 years. Shout out to her because she helped me get through my separation. She helped me sell my house. She helped me understand that I was unhappy in my life. And since then, she's also been someone that has helped me, kind of find this best version of myself and who I want to be in my life. And so I think that's step one, if you are going to do something like this, is go to therapy because I'd had this established relationship with my therapist. I was able to go into session one day and tell her, I want to meet the best version of myself. I'm tired of being weighed down by everybody else's thoughts. I'm tired of being weighed down by everybody else's baggage that is being forced upon me for me to carry for them. And I'm tired of caring. And she actually says this a lot still during our sessions when I'm like, oh, well, I don't care about that. She's like, you can care without carrying that person's baggage. And that has been something that I've had to take with me and that I continue to take with me as I go forward on this new best version of myself path. I also started listening to podcasts that were more suited to what I wanted in my life. So Balanced Black Girl by Les. Highly, highly recommend that podcast if you're trying to start out anywhere in your life. I think she's great. Getting Your Financials Under Control, her first 100K podcast with Tori Dunlap. I also started reading more. And not just reading self-care books just to read the self-care books. No, I actually went out to find books that were better suited to how I wanted to show up in my life. So I have a couple here with me today. So for the Spotify folks and iTunes folks, I just pulled out 3 books. So the first one is called It Didn't Start With You. And it's basically how inherited family trauma shapes who we are and how to end this cycle. This has been a key thing in my therapy, but has also been so helpful in understanding when there's different parts of me that are showing up that don't feel connected with me. So I highly, highly recommend reading this book. It's by Mark Wallen, Wollynn. It's very highly recommend it. It's so good for building, especially if you don't have access to a therapist right now. I think this book is really helpful in getting you started. But it is not a replacement for therapy, to be so clear. The other book is for finance girlies, but it's called The Financial Feminist. And this is basically like a no shame way to start building your own wealth and how you can get to start living the life that you want to live. She also has Instagram. I think she's on TikTok. I think I see her mainly on Instagram. But she's on Instagram. She has a website. She offers a lot of classes and things like that that are pretty affordable, I will say. So highly recommend listening to her podcast or reading her book. And what's nice is it's like, there's like work that you can do. Like, so she asks questions. She walks you through step by step how to build up your wealth. It's so good. And the last one, which I actually found this person, I believe she was on her first 100K podcast, but it's called U-Turn by Ashley Stahl. And her story is pretty incredible, so I won't ruin it, but it's basically designing your dream career and designing the life that you want to live. And it's doing it with intentionality. And I think that's the key bit. So all three of these books served like one of the pillars for when it came to kind of starting this glow up, if you want to call it a glow up, starting to connect with the best version of myself, however you want to phrase it. But basically dealing with my mental health, which was It Didn't Start With You book. Dealing with my finances, that was the Financial Feminist book. And finally, designing the life that I wanted when it came to my career, and that was the U-Turn book. And I also like the reference or like the metaphor of a U-turn. It's like you can be driving on a path, you can always take a U-turn. It might be illegal when you're driving, but in life, you can always take a U-turn. You can always stop, you can always pivot. And that's kind of the basis of her book, is that it's up to you to figure out like what you want in your life. So those are three books that I think were really helpful and crucial in not even starting, but like while I was on this break, sabbatical, whatever you want to talk it, between 2013 or 2023 and now. So the big kahuna question, why am I going back? If I'm so happy with starting this new life of mine, why am I going back? If I'm starting to connect with the best version of myself, why am I doing this? Even though I didn't know what I wanted when I was in the tech world or the corporate world, however you want to phrase it. Well, I need money. It comes down to that, plain and simple. I need money. In order to continue to produce the content and to continue to show up in the way that I feel safe showing up here on this podcast, in my life coaching business, I need to feel psychologically and financially safe. And so I am going back so that I can afford the life that I want to live. I want to be able to eventually, live off of my businesses, but that takes time. That takes so much time. I have listened to many podcasters, and I've listened to other creators, and it's not something that is quick and easy, and you don't want it to be. And that's what I've learned. I don't want to blow up overnight. I want to slowly build my business. I want to earn trust with the people that follow me. I want to feel like I'm really connecting with the men, women, people of color, anybody else out there. I want to know that the people that are showing up and listening to me every week, they trust me, they know me. And in order to produce that type of content, I have to feel financially secure. I have to feel financially safe. And that's not something I don't have the resources that I would love to have. And so that means going back to the corporate world, plain and simple. That means being able to, put some time aside to focus on my business during the weekends. That means, grinding a little bit differently than what I had originally intended this year. But that's fine, because pivoting in your life and pivoting in your business is how you learn. It's how you grow. And if I were to just stay on this stagnant path of just hoping and praying and not getting anywhere, I was going to start to resent my business. I was going to start showing up in a way that I did not want to show up. I was going to get burnt out once again. And I didn't want to get burnt out when it comes to something that I have learned to love and something that I have found that I really connect with. I didn't want to have that negativity surrounded by this business. And so I think it's really important when you come back from these breaks that you're taking, if you're able to afford to take a break, that it's really important to get in alignment with yourself and get in alignment with what you want in your life, because I feel like going back into the world, I will be able to show up for my future coworkers, show up for my future executives in a way that I was not able or capable of at first. I have more of a skill set that allows me to show more empathy. I know how I want to show up in the world. I also understand, though, that this is not permanent. And this is just a blip on my future. This is just a little pivot when it comes to my path and when it comes to my career trajectory and my business trajectory of what I want in my life. And that's fine. That's okay. And, there are days where I wish I had millions of dollars so that I didn't have to, go back to the world. But honestly, I think this is better because I am going to learn how to manage a business in a way that makes me feel safe. And that is what is most important. The last thing that I wanted to touch on is kind of how I'm going about finding a new career and finding this new path for myself, or new workforce is maybe what I should say. I'm currently interviewing for a number of companies, and I've shared on my other socials how I'm preparing for those interviews. So if you're looking for tips and tricks, especially like on how to stay motivated, I do have stuff on, TikTok. I think that's mainly where I have it, is on TikTok. But those tips can mainly be summarized as: know the company, know their history, know how secure the company is right now, look on their LinkedIn, look on their actual their actual website pages, know who you will be working for. That's something that I wish I had done a little bit more in a previous role. And I think if I would have known a little more information, I probably would have made different decisions when it came to my employment there. And then a couple of the other things is write out the top 10 questions that you get asked for that type of role. So I typically am in executive assistant roles, and so I like to write out all of the responses to questions that I can either find on the internet or questions I remember being asked in previous interviews. So making sure that you can tie those directly back to your resume is super, super important. And the other thing is, and this can kind of be hit or miss depending on the company that you're interviewing for, but I do think the STAR method is really helpful when you're preparing for your interview. Even if you don't follow it when you're actually speaking to the person, I think knowing the STAR method is really important, which I believe it's situation, the task, the action, and the result. And it basically allows you to be like, boom, 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 this is what I did, this is how I did it. And it keeps the interview focused on you rather than saying, we did this and we did that and I was instructed to do these things. Because I think it's really important when you're in an interview, it's about you. It's not about your damn team, it's about you. Unless they ask a specific question on how you work with your team and things like that. Actually, even then, it's still about you. So answer your questions for you, not for your team. No one's gonna go and ask, what did your coworker do in that instance? No, the interviewer doesn't care. Just as a quick little side note and tip for there. The last thing is having 10 or so questions that I ask the interviewer about the company. And I have a list of those as well on my TikTok, which I think I can link that in the show notes. So if I'm able to, I will. So those are kind of just my tips and tricks for when it comes to interviewing at companies. I know it can be super demoralizing, and I know it's really hard out there right now for a lot of different companies and a lot of different people to find the right role for themselves. But take the time, take a deep breath. It'll be okay. You'll make it through it. And just knowing that your company and knowing that you're and your own worth, I think is super, super vital and super important. The last thing that I wanted to wrap up with is what I have learned between my 2 breaks that I've taken, as well as just going back into the workforce, I think for the third time. And what I've learned is time is my most valuable currency. So as someone who is starting a business and as someone who is trying to have a different life than what they had originally imagined when they were a little kid, I've learned that time is my most valuable asset. And in order for me to do the things that I want to do, I have to learn how to prioritize my time and have to also understand that time is a currency for me. The other thing that I've learned is that building something genuinely does make me happy. Creating this podcast each week makes me happy. And so that is something that I need to prioritize during the week, whether I have, doggy duties, whether I have doggy duties or whether I have social obligations or, family things or job things, I need to prioritize creating in my life. And whether that's for 5 minutes each day, whether that's, a big chunk of time on the weekends, it doesn't matter. I need to prioritize that time because that's what fills me up and that's what makes me joyous and happy. The other thing is I'm a beginner. I'm going to make mistakes. I'm going to learn. And sometimes I might make the same mistake twice, but that's okay. And it's a metaphor that gets used all the time, but legitimately, I have to learn to crawl before I can walk. I have to learn to walk before I can run. And before I can run, I have to learn to fall down and get back up. And I have to understand that sometimes it's going to be painful, and sometimes things are going to feel more painful than they actually are. So being a beginner is just about trying and failing and trying again and getting it right eventually. And that's something that I have to keep telling myself and reminding myself every single day. The other thing, and the last thing that I'll end on, is I need to keep my peace while also practicing being uncomfortable. And so what I mean by that is towing the line between sharing my life on social media and sharing my business with the people that actually want to know me and know me as a whole person. And the reason why I say it in that specific way is because there's going to be so many people out there that try to bring you down because they believe that you don't deserve something, or they think that you should stay down with them because you doing something better in your life is actually a reflection of where they are in their life. And that is not the case. I think having the people that support you stand around you as a kind of shield is really vital. And you have to be able to be vulnerable with those people so that they know that you care and love and cherish them. And that is something that I practice, and that is something that I, could be better at times. But it's really important to keep your peace, and it's really important to understand who those people are in your life so that you can start to make those changes and have those moments of learning and be able to understand where to put your time in your life. Well, I hope that you enjoyed my first YouTube video as well as this podcast about my corporate journey and how I am actually really excited for this next chapter of my life, this next phase. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity to learn more about myself, to learn more about how I want my business to function. And, I think it'll be a good challenge on how to prioritize my time and how to prioritize my peace. And if you're watching the YouTube channel, you might get a view of little Appa Bear because the garbage truck decided to come out. So apologize if you hear any puppy background noise, but I think that is a good stopping point for me, because I think it's time for Sir Alpha Bear to get some love and attention. I hope that you enjoyed today's episode. I hope you were able to take something away from this, and I hope you understand that life is all about pivoting, and sometimes there's a path out there that you think that you're supposed to be on. You think you deserve to be on that path, but doing that type of thing, it limits you. Having those beliefs in your body, having those beliefs in your mind, it limits you and holds you back from the greatness that you are actually meant to achieve. So have a good rest of your week, your weekend, and I hope wherever you are feeling loved and you're feeling cherished by the people in your life. Kisses.